Unawake represents The Center with your host, DC Radical One.
Greetings, friends, family, allies, and enemies. I am your host, DC Radical One, and you have entered the center. It has been a long time since I have done the show. And the reason to paraphrase Chuck D. I'm not gonna lie, I felt like I didn't have anything to say for a while. And when I got to the point of where I wanted to say something, I came down with a little respiratory thing. So if my voice does not sound as strong and clear as normal, I apologize for that. It wasn't planned, but things happen. So if you are on listening, come through the chat, give a salute. A BB48 straight black proud to brother Tony. So I only have about 90 minutes to do this show. So I'm going to be as quick as possible. And tonight's discussion is we're going to talk about this on again, off again war between America and Iran and how it's going to affect us here and how it is affecting us here. It's so interesting that the reason I'm doing this discussion is because I was having a discussion with a brother, happens to be a Muslim brother. And I don't know how, but some type of way I was like, someone said something about things being bad or something. I can't recall. And then I said, hey, they about to get a lot worse, with this war going on. And then somebody was like, but that's way over there. We're way over here. And when I heard that, I looked. I said, you don't understand, do you? And they looked at me like, what are you talking about? I told them, I said, we're in a global economy. Virtually everything is interrelated. So what happens over there affects what is happening right here. And so I think what I want to start off with is a discussion on the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Now, someone is going to say, what is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve? And put succinctly, it is a reservoir of oil that America keeps as a backup. And in the last 4 years, it's been used twice, once by President Biden and once by President Trump. The first time, and it's kind of interesting, the first time was with the outbreak of the Russian-Ukraine war. And the second time, of course, is the U.S.-Iran war. And the reason I say it's interesting is because, as we shall soon see, these wars are way more interrelated than people want to admit. Now, people, if you've been pumping gas for the last maybe 2 months, I guess, you probably have used oil from the strategic reserve. And that's because, as I said, Mr. Trump has used it. And Basically, people are not people. What am I saying? People. The president, excuse me. Basically, the president has used that and some of the Venezuelan oil that they stole as a price stabilization mechanism, along with some other market manipulation tactics, right? So the reason, if you've been paying attention, right, you may have heard people saying predicting doom and gloom, and the oil is going to shoot up, the price of oil is going to shoot up, and that's going to put up the price of gas and so forth and so on. So if you've been paying attention, Mr. Trump has been threatening Iran early in the week, and then claiming that he got some negotiations at the end of the week. Actually, no, my bad. I got it backwards. He started off, he threatened Iran at the end of the week, like Thursday or Friday. And then the beginning of the week, he's like, oh, no, we having some negotiations. We have the back door, blah, 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 blah. And so that makes the price go lower, right? I believe it's the Brent crude price, I believe. Don't quote me. And so he's been doing that to like keep the price of oil down. Something else happened that was interesting that I had forgot about. I didn't bring up an article on it. It's China for a while had tapped into their oil reserves, and they stopped. They decreased the amount that they purchased. This helped keep the price down, right? Why they did that, I'm not gonna lie. I don't really know. I'm not really sure what their motivation was. But from what I'm hearing, what I understand, that will no longer be the case. And so if China starts buying more oil, before the brother, you got ripped off. If China starts buying more oil, that's more oil off the market. And as other things were taking place that we see are taking place, that will affect the price of oil. So pretty much, unless something very unexpected happens, the price of oil will go up, the price of gas will go up, the price of food will go up, and the other energy things that are also taking place at the same time. And it's going to just come together to make a lot of people's lives, including most of the people who have been the sound of my voice, make our lives extremely difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this video real quick, talking about the strategic oil reserve, and then we'll read the article and take it from there. So you've been here, you know how we do. Load up the video and go from there.
America's emergency stockpile of oil needs a refill. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve has dropped to 331 million barrels. That is the lowest point since 1983, when it was first being filled. In tonight's Good Question, Jeff Wagner explains how the reserve works and why it has fallen so far.
There's a chance the gas you're pumping into your car was made with oil from America's emergency stockpile. Not because the country is suddenly low on fuel, but to slow the eye-popping ascent of prices due to the war with Iran. What is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve? Good question.
The Strategic Reserve was created after the Arab oil embargo back in the late 70s, and it's been the source that America has turned to during times of disruption.
The oil is stored at several sites along the Gulf Coast between Texas and Louisiana. Gas Buddy analyst Patrick DeHaan says it's basically a backup. Presidents have leaned on it in case of global emergencies. 11 million barrels were released in 2005 after Hurricane Katrina damaged pipelines and refineries. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, President Biden authorized 180 million barrels be released. Then this March, President Trump ordered 172 million barrels to be released. He took that action after Iran retaliated by choking off the Strait of Hormuz, causing one of the worst energy crises in history.
It is some impact. and it certainly wouldn't make prices higher by releasing this oil.
The SPR started with about 270 million barrels in 1982. It reached a peak of more than 726 million barrels in 2011. Today, it's at 331 million, less than half its capacity. The recent emergency drawdown is only part of the reason that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is at such a low point. So why else has it been drained? Mainly to make money.
Congress and President Trump in his first term agreed to sell it down starting in 2017 to use the additional funding to balance the budget.
From 2017 to 2023, Congress authorized 10 sales from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. About 140 million barrels were sold.
And after this is all said and done, there is the distinct possibility that the U.S. may try to completely refill its reserves, as countries would do, correcting a problem, refilling them, so there may actually be more global oil demand after this.
President Trump says the oil he released will be replaced with 200 million barrels over the next year. But with hurricane season approaching, it's possible that the SPR will be tapped again. With photojournalist Jose Pascual, Jeff Wagner, WCCO News.
Now, oh brother, you got ripped off. Give me can you give me a sound check as well? Now, that was, to me, educational, and it filled in some blanks. Number one, you know, we talked about everything that he said as far as the reserve, but here's the thing, right? We had the situation in Russia, of which I talked about. They used that. Then Congress sold stuff. But here's a key part that I learned, right, that they didn't talk about here. Even though it is, what they say, 330 million barrels, there is a minimum of, I believe, around 50 million barrels that you have to keep in the reserve, or else the place where it's stored will collapse. So it's kind of like, what can I compare it to? It's kind of like if you had to keep $1,000 in your bank account to keep your bank account alive, or else they would just take the rest of your money. You know what I'm saying? And you like, oh no, everything is good. I have $1,800. Yeah, but your mortgage or your rent is $2,000. You know what I'm saying? So unless you're getting paid that week, you actually minus 100. You know, and so that's how I look at the oil reserves. I'm like, yeah, you got some money, but you don't have enough money to keep your bank account open once it becomes the first. So that's kind of like what we're looking at here. You're not getting the full story, because if people really understood what was going on, what would people be doing? One, they either be panicking, or two, they be trying to say, something don't smell right. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest. If you've been in America for the last 20 years, something don't smell like right. You should be saying that a lot. But now more so than ever. And it's just funny because Trump is the perfect patsy, even though it's obvious that this is beyond Trump. So let me read a little bit of the article, and then I want to get to what happened today, because I didn't know that this was happening today until today. And I try to let you see that all these things are connected, right? So let's go to the article real quick. It says, why the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve matters amid U.S.-Iran tensions. It said it had hit the lowest level since 1983. Now, some of us were born in 1983, and all of us who were born in 1983, unless you're like, no disrespect, like old, you know, you were not, you were a child, or you weren't here, or a baby, you know what I'm saying? That's how long ago that is. That's 43 years ago. That's a long time ago, right? Reagan was in office when this happened. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump acknowledged to reporters on Wednesday that anytime the U.S. strikes Iran, oil prices jump. Let me just stop right there. Sometimes Trump says stuff that is like, duh. You know what I'm saying? And I gotta apologize for not bringing up my map of the Middle East again, but for those who know, right? You have Saudi Arabia, and then it has these little kingdoms around Saudi Arabia, right? And all of these kingdoms depend on oil. And what has happened, if you've been, because I talked about this at the beginning of the war, and I feel like I haven't talked about this since the beginning of the war. Iran has said, okay, look, here's what's going to happen. You're going to attack us. That's fine. We're going to try to stop you, but we know we can't stop you and Israel at the same time. We'll take that. However, what we can do is attack all the bases that you're attacking us from until you get to the point where you don't have any place to attack us from. Right? Now that makes sense. Here's the problem. If you're Jordan, Bahrain, Yemen, and all these other countries, guess what Iran is attacking? They're attacking you because you have U.S. bases where you are, right? So then Mr. Trump was start threatening Iran and say, we're going to start attacking your infrastructure. What does Iran say? They're like, fine, you can attack our infrastructure. However, when you attack our infrastructure, we're going to stop attacking those bases and start attacking those people's infrastructure. Now, anyone attacking your infrastructure is bad, but it's much worse when you live in a desert country where you don't actually have water sources and you have to have a desalination plant to take the salt out the water that you get from the ocean. Because if I hit that, then you don't have any water to drink and you're in the desert, and then suddenly you don't want to live there anymore, right? So once Mr. Trump figured that part out, then it was time to negotiate. You see how this works? So if you pay attention and you keep saying Trump, oh, let's negotiate, and then I'm gonna bomb them, you know what I'm saying? Then the next week, hey, let's negotiate up. There are multiple things going on. One, the U.S. cannot defend Israel and the Gulf state. So I don't think I got to tell y'all who they're gonna choose if they got to defend somebody. Two, if the U.S. can't defend the Gulf states, that means they can't defend their own bases because most of their bases are, you guessed it, in the Gulf states. You see how this works now? So those people, that 19-year-old young woman, she looked like Mexican American woman that died and on I can't remember what base it was. I don't even know if they said it. And that other gentleman and the other two people that lost their lives. One of the reasons they lost their lives is because the U.S. was using the few interceptors that they had left to defend Israel and couldn't defend their own bases. Yeah, I forgot about that part. That's not even part of what I plan to talk about today. But yes, thank you, brother, the base in Jordan. And Jordan is like one of the spots that's further away. Here's what, and I wish I had a video for it. Here's what I learned. I knew it, but I had to see it for it to grasp it. We talked about on a previous show, we talked about the Iron Dome thing, right? And the concept of multiple layers of defense for Israel, right? Which are paid for by the United States, by the way. Here's the part I forgot. Beyond the Iron Dome, that's the word I'm looking for. Specifically, there's another layer that comes from all those bases that I talked about in around the Gulf. All of those places, air defense systems are ostensibly to protect those countries, but in reality, serve as protection for Israel. So when Iran started this war and they used their junk missiles, those things were being shot at by almost every country that they flew over to get to Israel. Now, what does that mean? Well, what that means is if I shoot all the junk stuff and you have to react to it and you have to shoot at it and maybe even knock it down. Iran didn't care because that was the old tech. They made those countries empty out there all their THAAD missile batteries. I mean, not all, but their THAAD missile batteries and their Patriot missile batteries and their other artillery to shoot down the low-tech drones and missiles from Iran. Now, Iran has the hypersonics out, and it's not that they could shoot them down before, but you might get lucky and accidentally shoot down a few. But now the U.S. is virtually empty, and that's why they keep calling for a ceasefire. So whenever Iran wants to just say, you know what, tired of playing games with y'all, they can blow up almost anything they want. They hit a CIA site, and everyone's trying to figure out how they knew it was there. Everybody's trying to blame Russia and this and that. And we're going to get back to the blame Russia part of this equation shortly. So I know I have digressed. I have taken a tangent, but I just had to give an update on the war because what I just realized, I haven't talked about the war. And if you haven't been paying attention, there's a lot of stuff going on that you don't know, but you need to know to give context to this discussion here. So anyway, let me get back to this article real quick because I only have another hour. Use up half an hour that quick. Now it says, Brent futures topped the highest level since June 19th on Wednesday. Brent futures settled at $78.02 a barrel, up 5% from the day before. Meanwhile, the SPR fell by 6 million barrels in the week ending July 3rd to 319.5 million barrels, according to data from the Department of Energy, marking its lowest level since Reagan administration. Today, the U.S. produces more oil than any country in the world and is a net exporter of petroleum products. Roughly 60% of the crude oil refined in the U.S. comes from domestic production. The remaining 40% is imported, of which roughly 60% comes from Canada and another 7% from Mexico. Only about 7% of the crude oil consumed in the country travels through the Strait of Hormuz. So we asked the question, so why do tensions in Iran still affect prices in the U.S.? Crude oil isn't priced based on where it's produced, but on a global benchmark prices that reflect worldwide supply and demand, which answers the brother's question that I was talking about earlier, that how does that affect us? Because it's a global marketplace. So you have to pay if there's a shortage, whether the shortage is personally in your country. Now, it says independence doesn't mean price security or price independence because oil is a global traded commodity and all markets are interrelated. Maxime Sonnen, an energy executive who works with Stanford University Center for Fuels of the Future, told Al Jazeera. If several million barrels of oil are suddenly at risk because exports through the Strait of Hormuz are disrupted, buyers around the world will begin competing for replacement supplies from other countries. That increased competition pushes global crude prices higher, raising costs for U.S. refiners and ultimately consumers. Historically, strategic reserves are meant to be a short-term solution to buy governments time to deal with the situation, rather than a silver bullet or complete solution. The longer the crisis goes on, the less flexibility governments have with their strategic reserves. So, here that brings to light something, right? He said the longer the crisis goes on, right, the worse it gets. Why? Because at some point the reserve runs out. It's like anything else. Let's deal with our household budget. Let's say you got 25 racks liquid in your bank account and you get injured at the job and your mortgage is $3,000 a month. You have 8 months worth of mortgage. That doesn't include everything else you got to pay, include the medical bills because you got injured at the job, because you got to wait for the job to verify that you got injured there. If you ever been through it, you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, the first day you just worried about your injury and this and this and that. Then 4 months go by. And the job jerking you around and you don't know if you're going to get paid. And then all of a sudden, things look a lot, that reserve and that road is shorter, right? Same situation that the U.S. is dealing with. Sure, there's a reserve. They tell us it's 300 million barrels. But you know what they don't tell us? How many barrels of oil does America use per day, per week, per month? How long does that 300 million barrels last? How much is needed just to keep the caverns and the containers open so that they don't collapse? They don't. I mean, they tell you if you look up the information, but they ain't not blasting it out to everybody. You see how this works? So unless you're paying attention and you researching this stuff, you don't really know how bad it is. Because why? Because that will make people, if people think it's running out, that will make people what? Go out and try to buy the oil and buy the gas and store it themselves. And that will push the price up even more. It causes more of a panic, which causes a bunch of confusion. Right? So that's why they don't really talk about this stuff, because it can cause more confusion. Now, brother, you got ripped off says, I'm trying to see what, okay, brother said, workers' compensation only pays out 80% of total salary, so that's a deficit out to get. And there you go, right? 2-hour analogy. You know what I'm saying? You're starting off wrong from the beginning. Just like the strategic oil reserve, that you can only use a certain percentage of it without collapsing the whole thing. It's the same principle. Now, what else is going on that is causing a problem? Well, the Ansar Allah group of Yemen, aka the Houthis, are beefing again with Saudi Arabia. Be before the ingredients to raw Ito Vital. Why are the Houthis beefing with Saudi Arabia? There's a reason, and there's a technical reason, but I'm not going to use the technical reason. You want to know what the reason is? The reason is because Saudi Arabia is in bed with Israel. That's the reason. And there are many people in the Arab world who now believe that the Saudi prince, is not even really an Arab. They believe that he's secretly something else. So no one trusts the Saudi government. Well, not no one, but there are many people in the Muslim world, not just the Arab world, the Arab and Muslim world, because there are Christian Arabs and so on, who don't trust Saudi Arabia. And whenever there's a fight, Saudi Arabia always sends us find their way back in Israel, or in bed with Israel, or avoiding confrontation with Israel some type of way. So that's really the real reason, right? Because the Ansar Allah, they don't like the West, they don't like the US, they don't like Saudi Arabia. You know, they kind of like me. Like, if you're not rocking with what I'm rocking with, I don't like you. And if you come over here starting trouble, then we got trouble, right? So that's how they are. So why does that matter? It matters because at the other end of the Persian Gulf is the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. And that's what Saudi Arabia has been using to export their oil. Well, the Houthis have said, yeah, we're not doing that right now. You know, y'all want some rep. You want to cause some drama, and so we're going to shut this down. And Saudi Arabia, of course, is like, you're nobody, you're not shutting down anything. And the Houthis said, we'll see about that. And so, just if you take the blockade, the on and off blockade of Strait of Hormuz, which is about 20 to 25% of the oil in the world, and then you add a blockade of the Bab al-Mandeb, you're suddenly, looking at 1/3 of the world's oil being locked up and not able to pass through these areas because of conflict, right? So, to further elaborate on this, I'm going to play another video, and then I'll get back to what's going on, what happened literally in the city I'm in today. It kind of really, it really tied things together for me in a way that I could only shake my head. So, again, y'all know how. Oh, brother, you got ripped off. You forgot to tell me to put the banner on. All right, there's the banner. Ooh. And let's check this out.
Trump, who is desperate for options to get himself out of the quagmire in Iran. On the other hand, you have the Houthis, the Yemeni ragtag militia, who've already opened a new front, and they have set their sights on Saudi Arabia. Over the weekend, the Houthis launched a major attack. They fired ballistic missiles and drones. They struck Saudi Arabia's oil tankers, even Aramco facilities. That is the world's biggest oil company.
The Yemeni armed forces carried out two types of military operations. The first targeted sensitive targets at Aramco facilities in Jizan using dozens of ballistic missiles and drones, while the second operation targeted sensitive targets at Aramco facilities in Yanbu using ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones.
Now, this is not the first such incident since the Iran war began. The Houthis and Saudis have traded strikes before. This is a rivalry that goes back more than a decade. The truce was achieved, but things have escalated recently. Last week, the Houthis closed the Bab al-Mandeb Strait for Saudi Arabia, bringing the Gulf Kingdom's oil exports to a sudden halt. The Bab al-Mandeb is a narrow shipping lane that connects Europe and Asia. It oversees nearly 10% of global oil trade. But for Saudi Arabia, it's an economic lifeline. As per reports, almost 75% of all Saudi oil passes through the strait. The Houthis have now choked those exports. But they're going even further by attacking Aramco's oil production facilities. The Saudi kingdom's future oil exports are also impacted. And all of this is being done using cheap weapons, like the Al-Mandab anti-ship cruise missile, a weapon named after the strait itself. It can strike targets up to 300 kilometers away. This radar-guided missile costs a few $100,000. Then there's the Quds, a subsonic cruise missile gifted by Iran. It can travel nearly 150 kilometers and it costs just about $50,000 to make the missile. But the Houthis also rely on cheap drones, like the Shahid series, with some of the cheaper variants costing just $10,000. Basically, the Houthis are hurting the Saudi economy with weapons that cost less than what an average American makes in a year. And the Yemeni group says they are in no mood to stop the attacks.
We reaffirm that the maritime blockade imposed on the Saudi enemy remains in force in response to its aggression and unjust blockade, which has continued for 12 years. We will not hesitate to expand our military movements and escalate our actions in the coming hours and days, in line with our policy of blockade for blockade and escalation for escalation.
Now, there are two bigger questions here. First, where are Trump's guarantees? The United States has always projected itself as a net security provider, a pitch that was sold to Riyadh for decades. Today, when the Saudi kingdom is battling Houthi attacks, the United States is missing. And speaking of those missing in action, where is Pakistan? Islamabad has a mutual security pact with Riyadh. An attack on one is to be treated like an attack on the other. At least, that's what the agreement says. Now, when it's about billion-dollar loans or weapons, Pakistan is usually the first in line. But when it's about keeping promises, Islamabad is nowhere to be seen. Which brings us back to the Bab al-Mandeb. It literally means the gate of tears, a fitting name. If the gate remains shut, there will be plenty of it. Saudi Arabia's economy is dependent on oil exports. It needs the strait to be open. But this is exactly what Iran wants. Tehran may not control every Houthi decision, but the two seem to be aware of one of the oldest sayings in geopolitics. Control the straits and you control the oil. Today, Iran has closed down the Strait of Hormuz and the Houthis are tightening the noose on Bab al-Mandeb. The war is no longer just about Iran. It has spilled into the Red Sea, into the world's shipping lanes, and into the Gulf's largest oil producer, Saudi Arabia.
All right. So, excuse me. So I think they did a good job of clarifying what is going on. So there is one more thing that happened, and I'm going to talk about that, and then I'm trying to tie this all up in a bow. It says the Iran and Ukraine wars are colliding on the world's biggest lake. Here's what to know. So here's what happened, right? What happened is that the Ukraine, and we talked about how they managed to find themselves and all types of stuff. The Ukraine attacked an Iranian ship that they say was headed towards Russia. Iran says it was coming from Russia carrying steel. As usual, somebody's lying. I don't know who's lying. Somebody's lying, right? And so that is causing a greater conflict. Let me put brother, you got Rudolph's information up. He says global data centers consume approximately 670 barrels oil equivalent per day in 2024. Right? This figure is derived from the International Energy Agency's estimate of 415 terawatt hours of total electricity demand for the data centers. Let me get down to the part with the oil. Says approximately 290 to 300,000 barrels of oil equivalent per day usage, approximately 170 billion barrels of oil equivalent per year, which would be a third of the remaining oil reserves. So if the war goes on for a year, the U.S. is down to about 200 million barrels of oil. Good luck if things get to that point, which is why Mr. Trump is trying to end the war. Excuse me for a second. My apologies. I almost lost my voice. So, because I'm suddenly losing my voice, let me play this clip so to let y'all know what is going on, why I was talking about Ukraine, and how all of these things are connected. So, give me a second. We're going to check this out, and then we're going to try to tie this stuff together.
Efforts appear to ramp up between the US and Iran. Tehran is now embroiled in another conflict. In a stunning development, Iran claims Ukraine attacked one of its vessels in the Caspian Sea over the weekend. Now, Ukraine's president says drones targeted several ships which were transporting military cargo from Iran to Russia. That's the story out of Ukraine. Iran says at least one person was killed and 3 injured and is now threatening Ukraine. This all comes as US military operations against Iran do appear to be on hold. But despite the US signaling new diplomatic efforts, Tehran insists Washington will not determine the timing of this war. Look, from Europe to the Gulf, we are following all sides of this evolving story for you. Today, we've got Claire Sebastian in London. Eleni Giokos is in Dubai. Let's start, if we can, Claire, with Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warning that this incident in the Caspian Sea cannot go unanswered. What is going on there, and why would Kyiv risk getting mixed up in another conflict?
Yeah, Becky, I think it's a calculated risk for Ukraine here. I just want to be clear, we're not 100% sure at this point what exactly happened. We have different accounts from different sides. Ukraine says it hit cargo ships that were under international sanctions, as well as a sort of missile boat, a military ship. It's not saying which countries they were flagged under or owned by. It's saying they were involved in transporting military equipment between Iran and Russia. Those were the exact words of President Zelensky over the weekend. Iran, of course, on the other hand, is saying that one cargo ship, civilian cargo ship, was hit and one seafarer was killed and several injured, and the ship was on its way from Russia to Iran. So we have different accounts there, but why would Ukraine take the risk here, I think, is a really big question. Look, on the one hand, the position of Zelensky is that Iran has effectively already attacked Ukraine through its supply to Russia of Shahed drones and then the subsequent licenses, ballistic missiles also reportedly. And so that is his sort of official position, that this is a legitimate target. But I think the timing here is really interesting because, of course, Zelensky is now going into this big diplomatic week. He's in the UK today. He's heading, we think, to Washington tomorrow to meet with President Trump. And these strikes do allow him to sort of re-argue the prowess of Ukraine's deep strikes, to help with this flipping of the narrative around the sort of patron-client relationship that we used to have with Ukraine when it visited its Western allies, towards the sort of mutuality of these relationships. And of course, it helps bring Ukraine up the priority list, especially in the eyes of President Trump, if he sees that Ukraine is now potentially able to help weaken Iran through strikes like this, and also the danger of the burgeoning military relationship between Russia and Iran and how that could affect the course of the war with Iran. So I think all of that helps bolster those arguments for Zelensky going in to a critical diplomatic week, and of course, especially a critical meeting in the White House.
All right. Excuse me. So here is, and brother, you got ripped off, gave away a little bit of the game. So here's the interesting part, right? Because they were like, oh, why would he do that? And at first I was like, yeah, kind of, why would he do that? But now we have a clue. Mr. Trump met with Mr. Zelensky and Mr. Netanyahu today. And then they went to Lindsey Graham's funeral. Now, Mr. Trump, well, my bad, excuse me. Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Zelensky just so happened to be of Jewish descent. Right? Mr. I did not bring that video up. One of the biggest opponents historically, rivals. One of the groups of people that many Jewish nationalists hate the most are Russians. Russia is at war with Ukraine, but Ukrainians and Russians are cousins. Right? So why are they fighting? They're fighting because they're ruled by a Jewish, for lack of a better word, a Jewish cabal. Right? You know what I'm saying? They like to call everything else what's the word? A junta. They, you know what I'm saying? Let's call it what it is. Being ruled by a Jewish cabal, right? Mr. Zelensky's an entertainer and likes to dance around in women's clothes and whatnot. Now he's a president of a country, and he has had no problem sacrificing the men of that country to a war that he know he cannot win. This is just the historical fact, right? But what he can do is cause Russia and Russians pain, because that is a historical enemy of Jewish people. This I can't remember what show it was, but I played a video where there was a Jewish gentleman and he just started going off and we're going to get you Russia and this and this and that. And then I had to go look up the history because I was like, what is his problem? Right? I mean, he was losing his mind. Right? So then once I looked up the history, I was like, oh, okay, these people don't like each other. All right, cool. Now, Mr. Netanyahu, of course, and we know him, right? We don't have to speak about that. What is the chances of them coincidentally both coming here to America right after, basically right after the war restarts, and then right after the Ukraine attacks an Iranian ship and kills one sailor? All of this is not happenstance. Now, I want to say this because we were supposed to be talking about the economy. Here's the reality of the situation that a lot of people don't want to admit because they don't want to accept. America is at the behest of Israel. Israel is an ethno state. Right? Israel is a state that's run by and for quote unquote Jewish people. These are just the facts. Those people have undue influence, shall we say, in American politics. Not Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham deceased. What's his name? Marco Rubio stated that this war with Iran started because Israel was going to attack Iran, and so if America didn't get in, whatever. Like the story didn't make no sense to me because I'm like, okay, well, if Israel attacks Iran, good luck. Like, if you want to go, if I'm hanging out with my buddy, he starts drinking and he wants to punch somebody in the face. First of all, I'm gonna say, hey, you had too much to drink, man. Come on, let's go outside. Don't worry about it. You can sleep it off later. Let's catch an Uber or whatever and get out of here. If you can't control your friend and he gets into a bunch of fights and you start missing time at your job because you getting arrested with him, you either need a new friend or you need to get him some help. But you know what you don't need to do? You don't need to go drinking with that guy. That drunk friend that runs around picking fights with everybody, that's Israel. The guy who's getting in trouble with him is the United States, right? Now, we know, those of us who, if you've been following the show for long enough, you know why Mr. Trump specifically is susceptible to the influence of Mr. Netanyahu, right? I don't have to get into it. It got something to do with parties and islands and little girls. You know what I'm saying? That whole thing that people tried to erase from history. Yeah, it's got something to do with that, right? Side files and, those things, right? So Mr. Trump is never, unless something really strange happens, is never going to go directly against Israel. And even with earlier, there was a time, I can't remember what it was, but there basically was an incident where he tried to reel in Netanyahu, and Netanyahu basically like blew him off like whatever, and did his own thing anyway. So here is what I think is happening, right? Try to sum this up. the Israel wanted to start this war as part of their greater Israel project, and they wanted to weaken the strongest country in the area, right? I think almost everybody agreed to that. That's not conspiracy theory. That's kind of it. That's political analysis. In the meantime, brother, you got ripped off. Hey, man, every time I thought it was me. Every time I go on YouTube, they show those commercials, man. Now, I wish I could just send them a note and say, hey, man, my sausage works, man. Stop sending me these commercials. I don't know what's going on. I thought it was me. I'm just like, what? Why is these the only commercials I get on YouTube? What is that? All right, I'm back now. The brother make me laugh. Here's what I think is going on. Like I said, part of the Greater Israel Project, they want to obviously weaken or destroy Iran. But here's another thing. And I gotta find these videos of Netanyahu saying this stuff. I think weakening the United States is also part of this plan, right? And I think there are people above Netanyahu who would like to use this as part of a jump off to, shall we say, cull the herd, right? To lower the population a little bit. You start a war, you stabilize the economy. All of a sudden, you stop the fertilizer. People start starving. You have energy shortages, energy outages, inflation. Y'all see where I'm going with this, right? Y'all see how this works. In the meantime, Zelensky on the other end says, okay, because this is another thing that they've been doing. They've been attacking Russia's oil refineries. In the middle of an oil crisis that's already started, all of a sudden now you want to start attacking the oil refineries of one of the, probably the second or third biggest oil producer in the world. Like, you're literally helping to destroy the economy that's already being destroyed. And then you go to meet with Netanyahu or meet with Trump before or after or around the same time and meet with Netanyahu. And they're probably all meeting together, but they're just not saying it. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. I don't think it's a coincidence at all. So all of this, excuse me, is leading to the 2030 agenda, the 15-minute cities and things like that. It really got ripped off just said. But part of those 15-minute cities, it's easier to do that. Got less people on the planet. Excuse me for a second. So, before you get to that point, though, you have to have a lot of economic pain for people around the world. So, I played this in a show before, but I just want to play it again because this talks about the possible economic ramifications of this war. And this was, I think this report was probably, maybe a month ago or so. But we're gonna, I'm gonna bring this up and we're gonna check this out. So give me a second.
Because much of the fertilizer that the world needs in order to grow food comes from that region of the world. And right now, the Strait of Hormuz is not really available for shipping fertilizer to various parts of the globe. Now, this is a little talked about consequence of this war against Iran. And this conflict is going to drive up the price of all sorts of chemicals, including fertilizers like urea, nitrogen, and ammonia. Now, these chemicals are critical for food production, and much of it is in fact produced in the Gulf region. So 5 primary fertilizer exporters, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE and Bahrain, rely heavily on the Strait of Hormuz to export their wares. And as we've learned, the Strait of Hormuz has been effectively shut down by the Iranians in retaliation for the US-Israeli attacks against them. Making matters worse, the United States stupidly went into this war right before the spring planting season. So how bad is this? Well, according to the New York Times reporting, and they tend to, provide cover for these types of conflicts, but even they had to admit, collectively, these countries supply more than 1/3 of the world's trade in urea, the dominant form of nitrogen fertilizer, as well as nearly 1/4 of another type, ammonia. According to data that was compiled by the International Fertilizer Association, the same 5 countries produce nearly 1/5 of phosphate fertilizers. So one major source of urea, Qatar Energy, halted production this past week when it lost access to natural gas after strikes from Iranian drones and missiles. But look, for the most part, believe it or not, factories are still producing fertilizer. It's just that the Strait of Hormuz, way more important than people suspected, I guess. So they're unable to transport the fertilizer. So yeah, production has been harmed a little bit, but the bigger issue is transporting the fertilizer. And they're having trouble shipping it. And we don't know how long this disastrous war is going to go on. So the longer it goes on, the bigger problem this becomes. So this does threaten the global food supply. And while wealthier countries will likely just pay a lot more for their food, meaning us, the United States, we will likely see even more inflation when we go to the grocery store. The real victims of all this are the poor and developing countries that stand to go hungry as a result of this. And so we should also note that Trump did position the United States in a uniquely terrible position as this fertilizer shock hits the markets. Trump's tariffs had already raised the cost of imported fertilizer, forcing many farmers to hold off stocking up. The White House exempted fertilizers from its latest tariffs last month, but millions of tons of urea cannot quickly be summoned from points around the globe. So what are the experts saying about all of this? Well, why don't we go to Chris Lawson? He's the vice president of market intelligence and prices at the London-based commodities research firm known as CRU. He told the New York Times, quote, "It's bad. There's no other way of putting it. The world is highly reliant on fertilizer and associated raw materials supplied out of that region, meaning the Gulf." Jan William Earsman has a similar take. She's a chemical engineer and fertilizer expert at the Leiden University in the Netherlands. She concedes that the price of food will go up. So my fellow Americans, what do you think? Maybe it's just a small price to pay for a foreign country to hit its goals so they can expand their borders, annex land, and continue terrorizing the Middle East. Congratulations.
So even though that's an old report, it remains, the truth of it has not changed. Brother, you got ripped off says organic potatoes are basically $1.09 a pound. Stuff is crazy. And also he says, if you are finding this information constructive and of value, consider making a donation to the channel via Cashapp. That's $DC Radical 1. Thank you for that announcement, good brother. So now I think we understand the stakes at hand, right? So what I'm going to do, because we do have sponsors, I'm going to play the sponsors commercial, and then I'm going to come and wrap this up in the next 20 minutes or so. After that, before the age of Brother Crow. So, we got a message from our sponsors, and then we'll come back and wrap up the show from there.
I'm Russell Lewis. I'm a licensed insurance agent I'm an independent agent and I represent a plethora of different insurance carriers, and I offer a variety of insurance products and insurance services, including automobile, motorcycle, boat, general contractors insurance, long-term care, life insurance, motorcycle. Are you a landlord, have rental property? I work with Foremost Insurance to offer landlord insurance, renter's insurance through Progressive Insurance, as you see, which is one of many carriers I represent. Do you need to protect your business vehicle or your truck? Do you have a golf cart? I work with Universal Property and Casualty for your homeowners and property insurance, specific specialty. Does someone in your home or business need someone who speaks Spanish in this to do that? I'm also a licensed mortgage loan officer in the state of Maryland. I'm looking to expand to 4 to 5 other states in this coming year. And I offer a book to my potential clients on how to get the best mortgages. And a second book I offer to licensed realtors to help their clients prepare for the mortgage lending process. Do your clients or your clients need an estate planning program? We have an estate planning software program which I market and assist you with. And again, many carriers I work with in 16 states from New York down to Florida, over to Ohio, Michigan, Arkansas, Texas, and Colorado. North Carolina, South Carolina, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Alabama, and other states. If you need insurance, give me a call at 443-622-0561. My web address is www.lewisfinancialgroup.net. You can reach me Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. until 6 p.m. And I'm also available on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. I look forward to serving you with all of your insurance needs. Give me a call whenever you're available. Thank you again. Peace and blessings. Have a great day.
Shout out to Lewis Financial Group. Be sure to contact them for all of your insurance needs. That's lewisfinancialgroup.net. That is lewisfinancialgroup.net. Now, I want to talk about this last article quickly and then go from here. This is from yesterday. Last week. Well, no, almost 2 weeks ago now. Anyway, says U.S. invasion of Iran could trigger Iranian ground attacks on Kuwait and Bahrain. Says Iran could launch ground attacks on Kuwait and Bahrain if the United States launches a ground invasion of Iran. Ahmad Bakshayesh Ardestani, a member of Parliament's National Security Committee, warned on Friday. If the United States put boots on the ground in Iran, we may also launch ground attacks on Kuwait and Bahrain. Referring to the U.S. threats to seize Karg Island, he said American forces might occupy it for a day, but could not remain because the island was within range of Iranian missiles, adding that a ground assault would turn U.S. troops into cannon fodder. So let's discuss this issue real quick. Mr. Trump has apparently been discussing the possibility of some form of ground invasion in Iran. Every military person that I have listened to, from those who I respect their knowledge, to those who I've never even heard of and don't know if they know what they're talking about, to my own understanding of logistics and tactics and strategy and geography and topography, right? All of that. I've taken all of that knowledge together, and the conclusion I have come to independently and with the help of that research is that it would be a massacre. Just plain and simple. So I'm gonna just give you a visual. You have an island, right? The United States has to get through I guess they have to fly in, I guess from Israel, fly over the Gulf, land on an island, set up shop, right? And of course, you're gonna be taking fire while all this stuff is going on. Set up shop. You bring your men, your weapons, your supplies, whatever shelter you're gonna build up, and then you have to try to build up some type of entrenchment and fortify that area, right? Like he says, while in range of hypersonic missiles, land-based drones, and water-based drones. You're going to try to secure that island under that pressure. We're not even talking about any actual soldiers shooting at you. We're just talking about all the other stuff. And oh, by the way, for all we know, there are soldiers near the island or in neighboring islands, maybe buried in the sand of the island. I don't even know, right? I don't think anyone knows. I don't think the Iranians have told anyone. Like, we have no idea what type of preparations they made. We just know they have because they mentioned it. This would be the type of disaster that would effectively end President Trump's presidency. So he wants to do it so he can claim a victory, but his advisors have been telling him this is the end of your presidency. So this is going to come down to his ego versus whatever modicum of intelligence he has left. What's going to happen with that? I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know. Because Trump is unpredictable. But lately he just seems to be on a run of doing things that don't make sense and don't work. Right? Like this entire war has been something that hasn't made sense and it ain't working. So the question is he gonna double down, triple down on that? If he does, and hundreds of soldiers are deleted and the Iranians show video, or they capture somebody and put them on and have them say whatever they have them say, like I said, it'd be crushing to his presidency. And here's the scary part. Because Trump's base are not the most politically astute, well-versed people, that could spur America, or his base, not all of America, his base, on to want to fight harder and send more troops, which would just be a complete, it'd be a massacre. But we have to prepare for the possibility of that. Now, it's not good, but I don't know the word I'm looking for. Good is not the word, but because the military has been decoupled from the population, the only good part is that people in the military will suffer the casualties, but people who aren't connected to the military won't feel the brunt of the situation as much, unless they enact a draft, in which case you'll have all types of chaos going on. Brother Crow says mainstream, lamestream media and the Trump administration is lying about the casualties. Oh, absolutely. There's no question about that. I don't even know what percentage they're undercounting, but there's no way of knowing. I have no doubt that they're undercounting in a way that we can't even imagine, right? So that is pretty much a very short and brief recap of where the war is as of 4 hours ago. Where is it going forward? I don't know. But Israel's not going to let the U.S. get out of this war without them achieving some objective. How that's going to work, I have no idea. Not gonna lie to you. I have no idea. Iran has said that that yesterday's price is not today's price. What they asked for in the MOU, they're not selling for that anymore. Basically, they want the U.S. to give up and leave the region so that they can deal with their enemies one-on-one, right? Pardon me for a second. So as far as this work as far as the invasion, here's the thing. From my understanding, Bahrain has a majority Shia. I believe it's Bahrain has a majority Shia population, and then Kuwait has a significant Shia population. If America invades Iran, it is conceivable that Iran will topple those governments, and as I've said before, the eastern half of Iraq is Shia. You can see Iran make a move where they, in essence, annex Kuwait, Bahrain, and Iraq, and make them part of, at least maybe not part of Iran proper, but part of Iran's sphere of influence. And then if you have that, then they're one step closer to Israel. You never know what Israel would do with their desperation. Because there's a part of me that believes that Israel will eventually try to find some excuse to either force the United States. They want to force the United States to drop a nuclear weapon. That's what I believe. Or they may get desperate enough to do it themselves. I can't put anything past Israel and Netanyahu. Can't put anything past Trump. Unless about to get the show demonetized, but let's have real talk here. Some of these people that we are talking about are in the Epstein files, and the despicable acts that we saw in the Epstein files. If you are a party to that, or you observe those things, or you know about those things, and you haven't blown the whistle, if that is the level of your character and the level of your morality, you can't put anything past that type of individual. Because if a person doesn't care about the welfare of children, there's absolutely no way in the world that they care about the welfare of adults who aren't related to them or aren't part of their tribe or group or whatever the case may be. These are just simple and plain facts. And so the people in the U.S. have to, I don't know what it is. I don't know. They have to accept the reality, right? Here's the reality. The world is ruled by psychotic, amoral, degenerate, barbaric people who do not care about the masses of the population on planet Earth. It's just that simple. And it is my belief that everything you see, every disruption you see, every instigation of war and all the things to it, it's not that the stuff is fake. It's just that they manipulate people to cause these events, and they try to steer them as best they can for the goal of depopulation. As our beloved ancestor told us, they want to kill you, but they want to make money off of your death process. Whenever you see something that you don't understand, Remember that quote by our Baba, Kamal Cambone. They want to kill you, but they want to make money off your death process. And in this case, it's not just black people that they want to kill. They want to kill white Americans, Asian Americans, Indian Americans, whoever. The depopulation agenda is targeted at everybody. Whoever they can get first, or who's ever the easiest to depopulate, that's cool. They take them first. And they just go down the line because that's what they want to do. So, in my humble opinion, everything that we see is toward that goal. And that's what we have to remember. So, even if it looks like it's on the other side of the world or the other side of the solar system, if it has these people who are ruling the planet involved, the goal is to limit the number of people who are on planet Earth. Plain and simple. Right? So that's the importance of why I talk about these things. That's the importance of this show. Hey, we don't get a whole lot of views. It is what it is. But Baba Veruti gave a proverb, says, give the warning. Some will survive. Right? So I just want to say the plan is this Thursday to have an SBL discussion. It'll be at 7:00 on Thursday. If anything changes, I'll let you all know via Instagram or via you'll see a change on the YouTube side. Yeah, brother. Goy is one of the terms that is used. Somehow that word is even more despicable than being called boy when you're a grown man, which is crazy because being called boy, there's a few other words you can be called that's worse. But that, historically for black people, especially for black men, that's one of those that, hey man, it might be some wrecking ball. So, yeah, our plan is to come on Thursday. I talked to Sister Najee. She's still working on her project. She wants to return. I think she said she would like to return Black August, but there's no guarantee of that. I want to try to bring some special guests on for Black August, but I wanted to see what type of views we would get because I don't want to bring people onto an empty house. I'll tell y'all that now. So I will check the views of this. I'll check the views on Thursday. I'll see how we're doing. So with that, just do me a favor. Not only like this program, but share it with people that you think would enjoy this type of content. Go back through the archives and share stuff that you think people might enjoy. It may not be this, it may be something else. Because here's the thing that's weird, right? And bro, you got ripped off. Let me know when it's let me know when it's 8:30, right? They got 7 minutes. Here's what's weird. The subscriber count is going up steadily, and I appreciate that. I wish it would go up more, but it's just like it's a really steady progression. The viewer count is lower than it used to be. I don't understand what that's about. And it doesn't matter what content I put up. It doesn't matter if it's live stream, doesn't matter if it's short form video, doesn't matter if it's me, it doesn't matter if it's Brother Genie. It had the views are lower. Now, is that my fault? Yeah, possibly, because I'm not consistently posting. Is it the people's fault for not viewing? Yeah, possibly, because we got a lot of people subscribed that's not viewing. So make sure you put all when you undersubscribe. I think that's how it works. So you get the notifications. But I suspect that our viewership is being suppressed. Can't prove it, but I suspect it. Right? That's all I'm gonna say. I suspect it not just on this platform. I suspect it on Instagram. I suspect it on because all Instagram is not only my views down on Instagram, but my what do you call it? The follower account is virtually inert. So this is a message. Obviously, we're saying something that they don't want us to say. And I'm just saying, if you can help us spread the message, and we can go from there, right? So, with that, friends, family, allies, and enemies, I am your host, DC Radical One, and I will try to come on Thursday. And I'm also working on a program about the AES, Captain Ibrahim Traore, because something very interesting is happening there. And I just saw something from Baba Chiani that stopped me from doing a show on the AES because I had to do some further research. Into what is going on there. Excuse me, but I'm gonna say this. As we talked about Ukraine and getting themselves into this war between the US and Iran and Israel, they have stuck their neck out as well in Mali. They have unalived some soldiers in Mali, and apparently they're also involved in some things as well, and possibly in Niger. So Ukraine is a problem, right, for a lot of people, and that's something that we'll talk about hopefully next week. I'm trying to see what my schedule is going to be. I got a lot of things up in the air right now. So I thank you all for your support. Thank you all for taking the time out. Brother, you got ripped off. Just get 5 memberships this month. So for those 5 people, congratulations. And we'll see who that is. I don't know what level, brother, you got ripped off, put that on, and that reminds me that I'm get off here. Anybody who's at the $9 membership or higher, when Black August comes around, I'm gonna have some special messages, right, for everybody at that tier. So if you're on that tier now already, shoot me an email to just let me know, and I'll put you on that email list, because those videos, I'll be saying things that I cannot say here, and I'll be putting those directly in people's inboxes starting the first week of August. So that is all the business at hand. Again, I thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'm your host, DC Radical One. You can follow me on Instagram at dc.radical1, on Twitter at DC_ONE, and also you can email me at straightblackpride_DC at protonmail.com, and you can donate via Cashapp $DC Radical One. Again, appreciate your support. If you came in late, go back and watch it again, and hopefully things don't change. I'll see you all Thursday. With that, I say a BB for ODA and straight black pride.
Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also follow us on our other social media platforms. On Instagram, we're at dc.radical1. On Twitter, we're at dc_radical_ONE. And the Cash App is $DC Radical One. Again, thank you for subscribing. A BB for ODA and straight black pride.